Senator Bernie Sanders, along with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other activists, held a panel discussion on the budget reconciliation bill. Now, this is, of course, Biden's agenda, the Build Back Better agenda that includes all sorts of programs that are supposed to improve Americans' lives. Things like paid family leave, child tax credits, universal pre-K, funding for elder care, free community college, all of these programs that are now really in peril because of the fact that you have corporate Democrats in the Senate, like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, standing in the way. Now, in this panel discussion, the whole point was to express to Americans what the bill is all about. In fact, it's titled, "What's in the Damn Bill?" That's the name of the panel. And what I particularly enjoyed was the commentary and messaging in regard to what really motivates these corporate Democrats who are standing in the way. Let's watch a quick video with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
You and I, Bernie, have had a front seat at is just the intense presence of corporate lobbyists throughout the process of reconciliation in drafting the Build Back Better Act. They want you and everyone who's out here watching at home, they want you to give up before the deal is done. Because it's way easier for them to try to get away with the things that they're lobbying for and against if people at home aren't watching.
And that's exactly right. But the difference that I'm noticing is that people have had like a boot on their necks for such a long time. And the economic anxiety and the economic pressure that Americans have been facing, which has only been compounded by the pandemic, it's made them a lot more aware of what really fuels and motivates these corporate lawmakers, right? These Democrats who are standing in the way of programs that I think a lot of people are actually aware of, right? I mean, people have already been receiving the child tax credit deposits in their bank accounts. And that's gonna be taken away. It was supposed to be made permanent. But now, if we're lucky and the budget reconciliation bill gets passed, it'll last just another year, that's it. I mean, it's like Democrats love to lose. They won't do away with the Senate filibuster, which is necessary to do in order to pass the voting rights bill, which honestly has to do with not just the future of elections, but the fate of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so look, good news, bad news, right? So the bad news is the same as always, which is, we've been talking about it all show. The reason I started Wolfpack 10 years ago was because if you don't get money out, you can't win on any of these issues. But it's not rhetorical, it's actually literal. So everybody's surprised. I don't know why you're surprised. Everybody talked about it. Did you think it wasn't gonna happen? So I'm just flummoxed by what, not progressives, but what Democrats in general thought was gonna happen. Even a lot of the establishment Democrats will say, oh, money's the most important issue, right? But why is it the most important issue? Because they give money to Sinema and Manchin, and Sinema and Manchin blocked the bill. And it's not just them, there's tons of corporate Democrats behind him. Just the other day, we're telling you about Robert Menendez, another Democratic senator from New Jersey. And he's like, oh, lowering drug prices, I don't wanna do that. One of my top donors is drug companies. There's a whole bunch of conservative Democrats in the House who are like, no, we don't wanna lower drug prices. They take tons of money from drug companies. We don't wanna fight climate change. They take money from fossil fuel companies. So they're literally blocking the bill because they get bribed. What did you think was going to happen? This is what corruption looks like. And by the way, you're only seeing it because it's an intra-Democratic Party fight. And Democratic leadership has basically allowed corporate media to talk about this to some degree, right? Normally, there'd be no fight at all. The progressives would have been booted out. They would have been shamed and tarred and feathered. And all the Democratic leadership would have been like, no, of course, this is historic. They would have passed nothing. They would have passed flimsy bill and they would have called it historic, and everyone in corporate media would have said historic, they're gods, they're amazing, and back to the status quo. So now the good news is, look at this uprising. AOC, Bernie Sanders, they're like, oh, okay, media, you don't want to cover it? We'll do our own stream. People love them, and so they'll check it out, and they do, and we cover it. And all of a sudden, tons and tons of people see reality. And so now they're finally saying, yeah, guys, it's other Democrats. And yeah, it's their donors. And they never said that before. No one ever said it until really Justice Democrats. And so not even Bernie, to be honest, before Justice Democrats.
And by the way, now we're seeing outlets like the Wall Street Journal of all places do pretty good reporting on how the sausage is really made in Congress. And I love to see it. A story that was just published in the Wall Street Journal today about why Biden agreed to do away with the provision in his Build Back Better plan that would have provided 2 years of free community college. Because there's lobbying taking place by 4-year public and private universities that don't want that. So real quick, let me just read that to you. Lobbyists for public 4-year colleges have said states might redirect funding from their institutions. So they're worried about that. They're like, no, we want enrollment at our 4-year colleges. So those are public universities, right? But then what about private universities? Barbara Mistick, president of the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, which represents 4-year private institutions, said that free community college is untested federally and the program's bureaucracy, they always love to use that word. The program's bureaucracy would have to be built from scratch, okay? Whereas Pell Grants, that's what they're calling for. They're like, no. Why don't we just have more robust Pell Grants? Because they would potentially benefit from Pell Grants as well.
100%, because the money would go to them.
They want the money to go to them, that's all it is. So, and I was wondering, I'm like, wait, why did Biden preemptively decide to do away with 2 years of free community college? That wasn't even a provision that Manchin or Sinema was protesting against. And it has nothing to do with Manchin and Sinema. Manchin and Sinema are awful, okay? They're corrupt and they want to do away with tax increases for corporations, among other provisions. But there are other lobbyists at play as well. And so when we pretend as if Biden is like a warrior for his own agenda, he's not, he's clearly not. Because all he needs to do is listen to some of these lobbyists, get influenced by what they demand, and he'll preemptively cut these provisions out of the legislation, and there you have it.
Yeah.
Developed country that does not offer free college.
So guys, you're not, I'm just being honest with you. You're not gonna find out what the real news is unless you're watching either progressive media or listening to progressive politicians in a stream like that. So did you hear on cable news any of the news that Anna's talking about in regards to how other colleges are torpedoing efforts to get you free community college? No, you never hear that, right? And so in this case, for example, in West Virginia, did you know there's only 13,000 jobs in any way related to coal? And did you know that this bill alone creates 31,000 new jobs in West Virginia? That swamps the number of coal jobs in West Virginia. So but yet the corporate media says, well, Joe Manchin's concerned about jobs in West Virginia. Well, that's counterfactual, that's alternate reality, alternative facts. And as long as it's for corporate rule, mainstream media says yes. But no, progressives say no, and now there's a fight back. And I'll give you one last stat. Manchin keeps saying, we gotta do means testing, because I don't want the rich getting this child tax credit, for example. So we gotta cap it at $60,000. By the way, two people making $30,000 a year are not rich. Okay, they're not rich in LA, but they're also not even rich in West Virginia, okay? But did you know that the current legislation already has it capped at $150,000? So the rich were never gonna get the child tax credit. So Manchin is saying the middle class should get it, between $60,000 and $150,000. So Manchin is literally making an argument against the middle class. Did you ever hear that from anyone that isn't progressive? It's in the bill, these are facts. And so unfortunately, we got to do an end run, but fortunately we're doing it and they're doing it around the corporate media. Otherwise, you're hearing propaganda, you're not hearing reality. By the way, next time they should do that stream on TYT. Keep it real.